Hi and hello everyone. Welcome to BAPS Pramukh Academy. Here we are going to start a series of weekly current affairs, particularly for those students who wants to cover up the entire week current affairs. But my advice to you will be is to read newspaper thoroughly every day. So on Saturday, every Saturday we're going to cover the entire week's current affairs because not every article in the newspaper is important from your examination perspective. Most of the articles is for knowledge based gaining. So we will be covering somewhat more than 10, 12, 15 articles whichever are relevant from your examination point of view, and we are going to look into those articles from prelims and mains perspective. You are also going to get the PDF in the description of our video, and you can keep this PDF with you as your revision material, wherein at the end of the month you have around 40 topics, more than 40 somewhat topics covered for the current affairs. Here the current affairs, we are going to understand the basic about the current affairs and how we can interrelate this current affairs with something else or some other subjects. So in this week's current affairs, we have around 10 topics to cover. The first one is the project Nimbus, which was very much in the news regarding the withdrawal or the walking out of 100 students in Sundar Pichai's speech at Stanford University. Second, we have the green hydrogen certification system or scheme, which was given out by the Indian government in terms of the production of green hydrogen. Third is the biochar, which there was an article in the Hindu where they talked about biochar, also in the Indian Express, biochar where it was referred to as black gold. So we're going to understand about it. Fourth, we have the core sectors growth, which is around 0.5% in the month of May. Then we have the APEDA initiative related to food processing. We have the hot news of the FCRA rules getting amended, and then we have one very few interesting short news such as the Kalamkari painting, which was gifted by our Prime Minister to the French government. Then we have the Nirbhaya Raho initiative, Netra Airborne early warning control. This is something which is a very you know great news for us for the defense system of India, and we are going to look into certain places in news in this entire week. So let's start with our first article. So the first article is this Google Nimbus. This was very much in the news. You might have seen this in your Instagram, Facebook, and etc., where you have seen that the Google CEO Sundar Pichai was embarrassed because hundreds of students walked out from his speech when he was delivering it at the Stanford University. So, what is this particular project Nimbus? Okay, so this particular project Nimbus or the protest related to this project Nimbus is related to some kind of AI computer clouding, which was basically a tech contract between the Israeli government and Google and Amazon. So few years back, Israeli government they they signed a contract with Google and later on Amazon regarding the storage of their data in a cloud based system. So this is all about the project Nimbus. So here if you look into it, it's a cloud computing artificial intelligence contract which was signed in 2021 between the Israeli government, Google, Amazon. So we can say there is a web service between the private company and the government. Now if you look into what is this cloud AI cloud system or the computing cloud system, it is nothing in a very very simple word. Like we store our data in some hard drives which in some infrastructure which is physically accessible, like hard drives, or say we have some storage room where we store all our data. But in the real world, what happens is that the companies such as Google, Amazon, and other government officials, they cannot have these infrastructures kind of feasible or also possible to store data. So what do? They store their data in the cloud-based system. And these cloud-based systems are run and organized by such giant tech companies. So Israeli government signed this contract with Google and Amazon to store their country's data, and this is where every all the controversy which arrived. So here basically the students were protesting against this contract, the reason being that this might lead into military surveillance of Palestinians, because few years back few journalists of Israel, they came forward, that is most probably the Guardian, they came forward and they said that the data which is being stored in the cloud by Google and Amazon can be misused by the Israeli government for pinpointing any person's location and also any person's private data. So that is the reason why they were unhappy with it, and did not want this contract to go forward. Also, if you see, the contract was signed in 2021, and since then a lot of employees from Google and Amazon has given up their job, saying that it is an unethical practice which is not correct for the citizens of Israel. Not just for the citizens of Israel, they also came forward and said that this could happen to anybody around the world if we keep on giving such uh, uh, paths for these companies to breach into our private data. Then this might result into processing and storaging of intelligence data. Then these data collected can also be used for operations in Gaza, and also it will have a dual use technology. That is, the data can be used both military wise and also for civilians. Like, the military will get the civilians data and will have an complete open door for the data, for the collection of data against the civilians, and it might be used in a negative term in the coming future. So for the betterment of citizens, that is for protection of their sovereignty, you can say protection of their privacy and also their personal liberty, the data should not be shared with such giant companies, because in future definitely they might misuse it. And thus you see there was a huge protest around this particular incident in Israel particularly. But this news came in when Sundar Pichai was giving his speech at a university conference. Now, this is the computer cloud computing system, where I have already said you it is nothing but it is an storage of data where internet is being used. Like, the best example is that you have this geo cloud system, that is, your Google images are not stored in some physical hardware. They have been stored in the clouds, and you can access this cloud from any place around the world. Just you need to have your email ID and the password. So this data, basically I can say, if you're storing your Google, if you're storing any image in the Google photo, definitely Google has all of your photos, and the Google can trade this photo with anybody else without your consent also, because you have already given them the consent to store your data. So it is more of an practice which is ethically questioned, and that is why this entire news is more important from our ethics paper 4, wherein it refers to the ethical issues involved in such activities by the tech giants. That is, the first it talks about the corporate ethics. That is, should a company refuse contract if the government may misuse technology? So it talks about the corporate ethics, that whether a corporate company should focus into more making its customer happy, or should it more focus into the profiting of the company. Next is AI ethics, that is, the artificial intelligence has remains, can it remain neutral? Because if you when you use artificial intelligence, there is a lot of time where you will see that it does not give a neutral result, or it is not possible for the artificial intelligence to give you a neutral result, or give a result which is not biased. So can it be such that the artificial intelligence used in this computing storage remain neutral? Next is, will this data not violate human right, such as the privacy, right to life and the dignity? So there could be some misuse of this data. And so most importantly, you will see here that it is more talking about a company. It is an state where the company has to look into its profit. Along with it, it also has to look into the human values such as privacy, right to life and dignity. So it is more about corporate ethics versus your morality. Okay, and the last is that employees ethics. Like, we have seen, a lot of employees have walked out of the company telling that it is an unethical practice and they should not be doing this. But however, Google came up and they gave their stand on it. They say that the intent is not for weaponization or classify military operation. It is more about healthcare, finance, education, and transportation. However, when Google gave out this stand, it is correct that it is more to be used in healthcare, finance, education, and transportation. But is there any boundary which has been made by the government that it will not go beyond the use of healthcare, finance, and etc.? So that is what is to be questioned, and that is why this is particularly in stake. I mean, this entire contract is in stake. So this is all about your project Nimbus. This is the mains practice question. You can definitely practice. And related to this news, these are the prelims questions. You can submit your answer in the comment section. Now, when you submit your answer, please write down the prelims practice number and then give your answer, so that we get to know that which question are you really practicing, because there will be a lot of prelims questions coming ahead. The next article is about the green hydrogen certification scheme. See, recently the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, they have launched this particular certificate for green hydrogen processing or production. Here the government has given out certain criteria, or has given out certain rules and mandates which the company has to follow, and only then the company is going to get the certificate of the green hydrogen production. Now, it was launched by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, okay, under the National Green Hydrogen Mission. So what is this National Green Hydrogen Mission? The National Green Hydrogen Mission basically talks that by 2030 India will produce around 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen, and by 2030 we'll have around 60 to 100 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity. What is this electrolyzer capacity? I'm going to talk about it. And now, in return of it, it will have a direct impact on our job creation. That is, it will create around 6 lakhs job, and will save around 1 lakh crore of importing of green hydrogen. So this is all about your green hydrogen mission. The main purpose of green hydrogen mission is to combat the climate change and also move India towards a Viksit Bharat by reducing the release of carbon dioxide. So you can say that green hydrogen is more of a thing which will work as a carbon sequestrator. But here, what is the certificate and the scheme about? Here, when you produce green hydrogen, see, when I talk about green hydrogen, what is it talking about? Basically, we are talking about two things here, that is H2O. That is, we are talking about water. In water, you will find hydrogen and oxygen. I mean, two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. So here what they do is that they split hydrogen and oxygen into two different parts, and then this hydrogen is used as green energy. Now, this splitting of hydrogen and oxygen is done with the help of certain energy, and this energy is electricity. So can I say that if you want to split hydrogen from oxygen, you need to give you need to have certain amount of energy to do this, or we can say this energy will come in the form of electricity. And now, to produce this electricity, you might be using some conventional methods such as burning of coals, or say such as burning of crude oils or fossil fuels. So when you're already burning crude oils, fossil fuels, or coal to produce electricity, which will go and split the hydrogen from oxygen, you are already releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So what is the point of it? It is something like, I am having clean energy, but to produce this clean energy, I have already burned millions of tons of carbon dioxide, or I have released millions and tons of carbon dioxide into the air. So to do this, the government has come out with this scheme of certification, wherein they said that these certificates will be produced to those companies who will produce the green hydrogen with utmost minimum release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So this green hydrogen, or the green hydrogen mission which we talk about, generally tells that when there is an electrolyzer, say this is the electrolyzer, it means that this is the place where there is the splitting of hydrogen from oxygen. And like I said, it requires energy, electrical energy. So what happens is that this energy can be produced from some coal base, right? Like I said, but in green hydrogen, this energy will be produced from some renewable source of energy, such as solar or hydro or etc., wind, etc. So it is only considered as green hydrogen. So here, if you talk about the objective of the certification, is that while producing green hydrogen or while processing this green hydrogen, the government is responsible to see whether it is genuinely producing the green hydrogen or not. That is, there is genuinely green and contributes to reducing carbon emission. Like if they are burning fossil fuels here or burning crude oils to produce green hydrogen, then there is no point of it, because you are already releasing carbon dioxide. So the government will certify the companies, and those companies will be considered as some, effective companies for production of green hydrogen. So the government has given out certain certificates. So what are these certificates? The certificate is that the first thing they said is that, in simple word, if I have to explain you, they said that if you are producing around 2 kilos of green hydrogen, you cannot produce more than 1 kilo of carbon dioxide. Okay, so it should not exceed 2 kilos of carbon dioxide. If you are producing 2 kilos of green hydrogen and also the carbon dioxide which you are producing is 2 kilo, then it is pointless. So you are not gaining anything out of it. You have already released 2 kilos of carbon dioxide. Now you have got just 2 kilos of green hydrogen. So it is not about 2 kilo here. The calculation will be done annually in an entire month. So this is the first criteria. The second criteria talks about that the eligible hydrogen production pathway includes electrolysis and conversion of biomass. So there has to be a conversion of biomass. And the third talks about there has to be an agency who will work towards it. They will make enquiries about the companies and only they will give the certificate. And in the certificate also, there are basically, you see, there are four types of certificate. The certificates are as such. First one is the concept certificate, second one is the facility level certificate. And this concept certificate and facility level certificates are nothing, they are basically the infrastructural certificate. That is, after the enquiry, after the inspection, if the infrastructure supports the production of green hydrogen, only then the company is going to get these two certificates. And these two, provincial certificate and the final certificate, is the main and important certificate. That is, only after getting these two certificates, your company is able to produce green hydrogen and sell it in the market. And these two certificates will be given to you after judging or after looking into it, that whether your company is fulfilling the criteria of the green hydrogen certificate scheme. And also, if you look into this certificates can enable the producer to access carbon credit. We know about carbon credit, like if one country is producing more carbon than the other who is producing less carbon, they give credit to the country and in return they take some monetary help. Okay, you might have studied about carbon credit in your environment. So here it's talks about that this certification will also enable the producer or the company to get access to carbon credit, wherein they can give away in return of some financial help. Now here, if you look into green hydrogen, this is green hydrogen which we are talking about. The most and the best effective way of producing green hydrogen is through green method. That is where renewable source of energy is used to electrolyze the H2O and separate hydrogen and oxygen, like I told you. This is called as the green hydrogen. Apart from this, there are other ways of also getting hydrogen from the water particularly. Second one is your blue hydrogen. This is what, here you do not use renewable source of energy, you use natural gas via steam reforming, and the greenhouse gas is captured and stored in certain locations. So this is called as blue hydrogen. Then you have the third, which is called as the turquoise or turquoise hydrogen. Here what do? You use natural gas via pyrolysis. What is pyrolysis? Pyrolysis is the process where the temperature is extremely high in the absence of oxygen. Okay, and here what do you separate methane into hydrogen and you get solid carbon dioxide. The fourth is the gray hydrogen, and this is produced by using natural gas via steam reforming. But however, here the carbon is not captured and stored. So if you look in the difference between blue and gray, here they are using natural gas via steam reforming. Okay, that is through form of steams, but they are storing the greenhouse gas, I mean the carbon dioxide. But in gray, they are not storing the carbon dioxide and it is getting released into the atmosphere. And the last one I have already told you that when you use the produce the electricity by burning coal or crude oil, and you get the hydrogen that is called as the brown hydrogen. So out of all of these, you see the green one is the most effective, because in the rest other you are getting hydrogen, but in return you are paying, also you are adding some amount of greenhouse gas or carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So this is the mains practice questions from this particular article, and then you have this prelims question number 3 and number 4. Please attempt this question and submit it in the comment section. The third is the biochar, which is termed as black coal. This has been very much in the news. You see, recently the government of India has also given out schemes for the farmers to reduce the use of chemical fertilizers and increase the use of bio fertilizers. And also we have seen this problem of stubble burning in the regions of Haryana and Punjab, which results into creation of smog around Delhi and the surrounding region. So here the farmers are in a very difficult position wherein they want to improve their productivity by reducing the uh, uh, time for the year, wherein they do not waste time in throwing the stubbles or the crop residuals, rather they burn it so that there is quick release of this extra burden. But however, the burning of stubbles or crop residuals results into severe environmental damage, and thus you see that there's a solution to this, which is called as the biochar, or which is termed as the black coal. So what it is nothing but a sustainable solution to stubble burning and the declining health soil, because when you burn stubble, you are also killing the microorganisms in the soil, and thus the soil becomes poorer in fertility, and thus after during the uh, cultivation period, the farmer goes and puts into puts a lot of chemical fertilizers, which ultimately results into productivity of the crop for the particular year, but in long run definitely it is reducing the productivity. So what is the solution? The solution is biochar. Now what exactly is this biochar? First let us understand what is this biochar, and then we are going to look into the other aspect of this article. See, biochar is nothing but it is a kind of fertilizers or an organic fertilizers which can be used by the farmers to increase their productivity. How is this made, or what is the process? Say you take an organic biomass. Here when I talk about organic biomass, I am referring to crop residual, or I am referring to stubble or crop stubble. So you take this organic biomass, you put it in a dryer, you dry it because there is a water contained in it. After drying, you grind it, and then you put it into a chamber where there is some pyrolysis reaction. And what is this pyrolysis reaction? Like I have already told you, it is a process where the temperature is increased at a tremendous uh, Celsius in the absence of oxygen. So there is no oxygen. There is basically you are burning it out, and you are burning it at such a high temperature in the absence of oxygen that as a result, out of it you get the biochar. Out of this process, you also get some gaseous output, which is called as the biogas. Then you get some liquidous output also, which is called as the bio oil. So this is the process of producing biochar, and out of all of it, you see this biochar is most used or can be used in agricultural field. That is, after this process of pyrolysis, after burning the stubble inside the chamber in the absence of oxygen, you get this biochar, and then you can take this biochar and spread it on your agricultural field, wherein it will again improve the quality of the field or improve the fertility of the field, resulting into increase of productivity. So this is all about your biochar. So it has huge climatic positive impacts, such as it will improve the soil without any chemical substance in it. Organically, it is going to improve the oil, it is going to enhance the nutrient retention capacity, it is going to increase the water holding capacity, because biochars, they have higher water holding capacity. So I can say that in the regions where dryland farming is practiced, particularly in the rain shadow regions of Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, in those regions, if the agricultural land is spread with biochar, once the rain comes, the rainwater will not easily slip off or drain off. It will get retained by the biochar. Next, it will boost the crop productivity. Definitely, with the increase of fertility of the soil, the crops productivity also will increase, and also it will support varieties of crop. Thirdly, in all of this process, as we are not burning the stubble and the crop residue, so there is no release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So it will also have a positive impact in fighting climate change or reducing the global warming. And definitely, lastly, we can say that it is something which will be very, very helpful in attaining the goals of sustainable future for India and the world particularly. Now, why is it called as the black diamond? By now you already have understood that what are the positive, impacts, or you can positive side of biochar. So can I say that because of its high value, or because of its um, extremely valued output, it is referred to as a valuable substance, and thus it is compared to the diamond. And we can say that it is considered as a black diamond because it converts agricultural waste into valuable resources. That is, it doubles the farmer's income. There is no point of burning the stubble or burning the crop residual and spoiling the fertility of the soil, or also spoiling the environment. Second is that it improves the soil health and increases productivity. Third is increases agricultural output, so the farmer is also benefiting in monetary basis, and then it creates value from what is considered disposal. So earlier, when the farmers were considering this as an headache for them to to keep it and store it, that is why they burned it and then got rid of it. Now they understand that this particular thing, which is considered as disposal, is nothing but a source of income or a source of earning extra money. So this is all about your biochar. Now, however, the article also said that there are certain evidences of this biochar being used in agricultural field. The first one is the Akola district of Maharashtra, where they have used the maize stalk. Then Kerala has demonstrated with the coconut leaf stalks. Kenya has done it with rice husk, and India can do this because we have a lot of rice husks. And Thailand has promoted biochar in their national soil rehabilitation and carbon management program. So these are the two questions from this particular article. Please answer it in our comment section. The next article is the core sectors growth slowed to 0.5% in May. See, now when I talk about core sector, what do you mean by this core sector? See, India's industrial sector is divided into two parts. One is the IIP, another is your core sector. Okay. Okay. Another is your core sector. So the government releases data on IIP versus the core sector. The article here is important to understand what exactly is this core sector and what exactly is this IIP. Remember, every month government releases an index or data, so telling about the growth of IIP and the core sector. This core sector data is released by Ministry of Commerce and Industries. Okay. the data of IIP, the full form of IIP is Index of Industrial Production, and the data is released by Department of Statistics. Here the core sector data is released by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. First, you're going to look into the core, and then you're going to look in the difference between IIP and the core. Okay, so the government has said that it has shown a decline of 0.5% in the month of May. Earlier to May, it has shown an increase of 1.8%, but after April, it has shown a decline of 0.5%. Like I said you, every month the government releases the data. There's a gap between 15 days between these two release of data, because both are released every month. Now here, when I talk about core industries, in India, we have 8 core industries. I mean, this industries determines the industrial infrastructure or the economical growth of the country. So that is why we can say it is the core industry. So basically, if this is the industrial arena of India, okay, this we call it as IIP. Here, this is the core which determines the main economical growth of India. So that is why we have put in 8 industries here which are considered as core. And these 8 industries, they sum up around 40% weightage of India's industrial economical growth or economical growth due to industries. So these 8 core industries are: the first with the highest weightage is refinery products, and as of May, the weightage is 28.404%. The second is electricity, the third is steel, the fourth is coal, the fifth is crude oil, the sixth is natural gas, the seventh is cement, and the eighth core industry is our fertilizer, which also has the lowest weightage of 2.63 percentage. So as of this data, the refinery has the highest weightage and the fertilizer has the lowest weightage. And if you look into this data, here you see in 2025, in the month of October, the growth went to minus 0.1%. Then somewhat it increased to 4.7% in the month of December. In January, it was stable to 4.7%, and from January onwards, it kept on dipping until May. In April, there was a slight growth, but in May, again, it dipped down to 0.5%. Now, what is the reason behind this dipping of growth of the core industries? The primary reason is global economic uncertainty or the global economic crisis, which has recently happened due to the blockage of Strait of Hormuz. Apart from this, since last year, the monsoon has also not been that good for India, and thus the monsoon also has impacted because of its late withdrawal and late incoming of monsoons. Okay, then there is a disturbance in the supply chains. I mean, there is a disruption in the supply chain due to, such as the logistic bottleneck and fluctuating international market. And definitely the last one is the seasonal factor, wherein it reduces the construction activity due to monsoons months, likely contributes to lower output in cement and steel industry. If you look into the cement and steel industry, it mainly blooms or flourishes on the infrastructural growth of the country. So if people does not have enough income source or does not have enough money for construction, definitely the cement and steel industry also will come to a will show a slow growing rate. So this is a difference, or this is exactly what the article talks about. Now when you talk about IIP and core, I have already given you the real meaning of what exactly is IIP. So I can say IIP is a broader term which includes all the industries of the country, but core includes only 8 industries, which cumulates to 40% of industrial contribution to economy of our country. So this is what is your IIP and core industry. So this is what we see. It covers the entire industrial sector of the country, but here it has 8 key infrastructural industries, and I have told you about it. The highest weightage of the industries out of this core is refinery, and the lowest weightage is fertilizer. lies. And like I showed you, the core industries account for 40% of the total IIP weightage. That is, out of all these industries around in the country, core industries, they have the 40% weightage in our economic growth. So this is the mains practice questions. The prelims practice questions. Next article is APEDA initiative. This is something very interesting article. Okay, what is, now let us see why this was in news. The APEDA initiative, see, in simple word, if I have to tell you, APEDA is an governmental department which basically works towards the processing of agricultural products. That is, after the products has been brought from the agricultural field, it is to be processed, and then it has to be sold or it has to be exported in foreign countries for better income source generation. Because in domestic market the prices are not that very high, but in international market the prices are extremely high. So there has to be certain infrastructure, or there has to be certain governmental structure in between who basically determines the quality of these products or improves the quality of this product, so that in international market the products have good weightage and values. So this is what APEDA does. Okay, so it is something related to the processing of agricultural product. Why this has been in the news? Because recently, and this is something which was also given in your PIB, because recently, dried whole egg powder from Balangir of Odisha was exported to Australia, and that gave a kind of a landmark that countries like Australia is exporting egg powders from India. Why? Because of the good qualities. The European countries, they maintain high standards of food. Like example, in the European countries, they do not consume the Indian rice. They basically consume rice from Vietnam, Thailand, and etc. Why? Because the quality of rice, I mean Indian quality of rice, is poor compared to these countries. So in international market there has to be certain standards or high standards so that there is proper sale. Second is that they have successfully completed the first cohort of its flagship startup, which is called as the Bharati startup. So I've added this because you have to remember the Bharati startup is under the APEDA. Now if you talk about APEDA, like I told you, it is an agricultural and processed food product export development authority under the Ministry of Commerce and Industries. Okay, and the goal, food production under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and the goal is that by 2030 there has to be around 50 USD billion dollars of profit. This is the target of India, that by 2030 we are going to earn around 50 billion US dollars through export of our agricultural product. And to do this, we need to improve our infrastructure, we need to improve the quality of our agricultural products also. Now, apart from this is not something where the APEDA has done this for the first time. They have done earlier also some landmark achievements. Like example, they have exported the GI tag Jardula mangoes to Dubai. Okay, this was one remarkable. They have exported, fig or jamun juice to USA and UK, and they have made, for the first time when there was this millet year celebrated, okay, they basically imported, I mean they exported the ready to cook millet functional food to Auckland, New Zealand. So these were some remarkable achievements done by APEDA. Now what is the objective of APEDA? First, definitely to maximize India's agricultural export and also foster the development of export oriented downstream agro processing, that is to double the farmers income or to improve the quality of the farmer's life. Next is enhance the global competitiveness of India's fruit product. That is, we know that in the global market our Indian food products they have very low weightage because of the poor quality. APEDA is working towards the development of the quality of Indian product in international market. Okay, next, third is it function as a mandatory registry authority. That is, any product which is to be exported in foreign countries, they'll have to go through APEDA's registry certificate, or they'll have to go through the approval of APEDA. And the fourth is that export supply chain integration. So this is all about your APEDA. Now this is the mains practice question and the prelims practice question from this article. The next article is amendment in FCRA rule. This was in news on Thursday or Friday. I don't remember exactly. So here, if you look into, you see what exactly this amendment in FCRA rule. So before we go and see what are the new rules of FCRA, first let us understand what is FCRA, what is its history, and how has it evolved over the time. Once you understand this, you're going to relate it about the new amendments. So now if we talk about why this was in news, because the union government has recently amended this. I mean, the rule of 2011 has been amended. Now, what is FCRA? See, FCRA basically it stands, you know, uh, for a very important purpose. That is, here in simple word, if I have to tell you, that is there are certain foreign companies or individuals from forests who invest money or gives money to Indian citizen in the name of donation. And now when this money comes in the name of donation, this money is not tracked properly, because we know that the money given in the name of donation to particularly NGOs, they are not properly tracked by government, and NGOs a lot of time misuses this fund. So this FCRA was basically, that is the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, was basically enacted in 1976 during the emergency period. During the emergency period, Indira Gandhi, you see, particularly after the emergency period, Indira Gandhi came up with this, that there has to be certain rules and regulations set out, so that the foreign investments in the name of donations to NGOs and other institutes such as religious institute, cultural institute, education institute should not come in such a way that it impacts the sovereignty of the country, it creates internal instability in the country, or also it creates a kind of a turmoil in the government or in the parliament. Because this has been seen in the emergency, that there was a lot of funding coming from foreign countries to India, wherein they were creating problems for the government, because the other side of the government, who were not in power, was getting this high amount of money from where? This was the question. They did not have a proper source of income, but yet they were getting funded by someone, and this funding definitely came in the name of donation. So thus Indira Gandhi set up this FCRA, trying to bring a kind of accountability and transparency in the donation process done by individual or organizations to Indian NGO particularly. This is how FCRA was enacted in 1976. Okay, but however, this was repealed and replaced by stricter FCRA 2010. So in 2010, they realized that this thing has to have a more accountable and transparent method, and thus they brought in the FCRA 2010 Act, wherein they put out lots of rules and regulation as per 2010. Okay, now this is under the Ministry of Home Affairs, MHA, and the main objective, like I said you, is to, you know, regulate the acceptance and utilization of foreign contribution, or else what will happen, it might have an adverse effect to our sovereignty and internal security or the country's interest. Like we have seen a lot of time in foreign countries, particularly in the African countries, these countries wherein there is a huge, continuous civil war going on, most of the funding which comes for the, groups or extremist group, or the lefties, where do they get the money from? They get the money from some foreign sources, and this money does not come directly, they come in the, they are being basically, you can say, uh, uh, rooted through some NGOs or through some organizations which works towards, development of education, culture, religion, and etc. And we have seen how religious funding has created so many problems for India in the past also, wherein the money came in the name of religion from foreign countries, but more was used for some anti-social activities of, could be uh, creating government instability, or creating some kind of, internal security threats. So that is why this particular act was brought in 2010. In 2010, when this was brought in, there were certain rules and regulations set out. The first is that there has to be a registration validity. That is, every NGO will have to get registered for 5 years, and after every 5 years there has to be a renewal of there has to be a renewal, and this renewal has to be before 6 months of expiry. Next is that the money now which is getting transferred in the name of NGO will only get to transfer the money in one branch of SBI, which is located in New Delhi. That is, the NGO should have an account at this branch of SBI in New Delhi, and any money coming from any source has to only get debited to this account. I mean, credited to this account. You cannot be like that. I have my NGO and I have my bank account in my own state, and the money, say for example, from USA or China comes directly to my account on my home branch of my hometown. No, the money will come in this SBI bank at New Delhi. Okay. Next, there's a strict ban on transfers. That is, NGOs cannot transfer any foreign funds to other entity. Okay, even if the receiving entity is also FCRA registered. That is, if I am an NGO and my friend also is an NGO, has an NGO, and both of us we are registered under FCRA, I cannot transfer my money which I have got from any foreign individual or organization to him, saying that he is also an FCRA registered. No, we cannot do this. That is, the money has to stay with me only, because earlier to this it was seen that money coming to one's account is getting transferred to other NGOs, and there is a misuse of this particular fund. So there is no transfer of funds from one NGO to another NGO. Okay. Next is that there's an administrative cap. That is, sometimes what happens is that, say example, I have an NGO and I got 100 crores from USA. Now what I have done is that I have use this money to fund some extremist group in my region, and now when I was held accountable by the government to show where have I used this money. I basically straight away told the government or any organization that I have used this money for my administrative purpose. And what is this administrative purpose? Say building of my administrative building, giving salaries to my employees, and as an administrative purpose. But now in 2010 they said that whatever amount comes to your account, you can only use 20% of it for a administrative purpose, because in administrative purpose there is a scope of showing expenses without even making any expense. Say example, I have built a say building out of 100 crore, 50 crores has been used to build a building. Okay, and there is no building here, but they have said that we have used this money for building of administrative building or giving salaries to our employees, but there are no employees here. So here in 2010 they said only 20% of the fund can be used for administrative purpose, the rest 80% has to be used for the primary objective of the NGO, and you'll have to report it. So this was the rules of 2010 and 2020. But in 2026 there were changes, and what is the change? The change is that foreign funds will operate only within activities. That is, the government has set out certain specific activities for the use of foreign funds, and all these activities has been categorized under 5 sections. That is, the foreign funds coming to the NGOs will be used only in these 5 categories. The number 1 category is your education. Okay, even in these categories they have given other, they have permitted to certain activities only. Like in education, you can use it for school, colleges and library, for scholarships, for research institute, and civic awareness and constitutional right programs. Apart from this, you cannot use it in other activities of education. Second is in economic sector, that is for livelihood generation, skill development, agricultural sector, entrepreneur and micro enterprises, finance and digital inclusion. In religious, to build place of worships, build religious educational centers, pilgrimage services, meditation programs, preservation of religious traditions. The fourth is the social sector, and the fifth is your cultural sector. So the government has given out these sectors and within the sector there are activities, only in these activities you can spend this money as of the new rule. Now next, the next rule is that the NGO should declare all of their publication, that is books, magazines and newspaper, whatever they have, they should declare it, and the government should have a good data or track record of these articles. Also, what was happening is that in the name of publication, a lot of money was spent, but actually there were no publications, and this money were, siphon off to some other sectors. So the pub- uh, NGOs should declare their publication. Now next is that NGO must pay separate fees for each state and union territories. Earlier this was not there. The NGO only paid a fee to the central government. Now the NGO has to pay separate fees out of the foreign funding to the state or in any union territory. And the last one is, you'll hear is word called golden hour. So it is nothing but it is a time window for renewal of the certificates or for the FCRA or for the NGOs. And it says that the suspended NGO to restore the FCRA registration before its assets and are permanently vested in the designated authority. That is, the FCRA has to renew their certificate before their assets have been, vested in the designated authority. Now all of this thing here, in all of this information, you will hear about a landmark Supreme Court judgment, that is Nual, Harper and Union of India. Basically, when you see here, that is NGOs are basically getting restricted for the use of their fund, or are getting restricted for the acceptance of credited fund from the foreign companies. So NGOs basically, they are unhappy about it because they are more accountable and there has to be a transparency in this use of this fund. So there was a debate both in the favor and for the against, that this is not something which should to be done, and NGOs are to be left independent, because in NGOs there are a lot of religious organizations, and religious organizations does not should not be in the accountable page, because there is a sentiment related to peoples. But however, Supreme Court in the Newell Harper versus Union of India said that the court, that is FCRA's, I mean the FCRA amendment is constitutional, okay, and says that receiving foreign fund is not an absolute right, and state can impose certain sanctions and rules for the betterment. So it is not an absolute right which is which cannot be altered or which cannot be curtailed. So this is what the judgment about Newell Harper versus Union of India. The next article is the Kalamkari painting. See, recently Prime Minister Modi, he has gifted this Kalamkari Mahabharat painting to the French president during his visit. Now this becomes important from your prelims perspective. So let us see what is this Kalamkari painting. Nothing but the Kalam word means man, pen, and Kalakari means craftsman. So this is a painting which has been which has a history of more than 3000 years, and basically it is practiced in the states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. What does it do? It basically depicts the stories and uh, events of Mahabharat. So in Kalamkari painting, there are different types of Kalamkari painting. The first type is the Shrikala Hasti style. This Shrikala Hasti basically uses freehand drawing styles, typically which is made out of bamboo and date palm sticks. So it is a freehand drawing. And what is the theme? The themes are basically religious, mythological, from Ramayana and Mahabharata, like I told you. The second type is the Machalipatam style. Here they used handcraft wooden block. Here they are using what? Freehand bamboo or date palm stick. But here they are using handcraft wooden blocks for painting. Like you see, there are wooden blocks, okay, which are crafted with hand, small, and they are used to paste it something like this, and then you get this art. But here they're doing it little by little with their hand. But here it is more of a, what is it called? I do not know, like a stamp. So they're using it like a stamp. So this is what they've used this stamp, and here they have done it with their hands, okay. And here the themes are basically from the Persian and the Mughal style theme, where there is some floral style. There is one more third, but however these two are the popular Kalamkari painting, but there is one more Kalamkari painting which is popularly done in Tamil Nadu, but this is of very little, the people practicing it is extremely low. Okay, this is the Karupur Kalamkari painting from Tamil Nadu. So apart from Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, Tamil Nadu also has this Kalamkari painting, but predominantly Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. The next article is the Nirbhay Raho initiative. This is one very wonderful initiative by the Ministry of Panchayat Raj of India regarding the Nirbhay Raho initiative. It is basically talking about that you don't be scared of anything, you don't be afraid of anything. Okay, so it was launched by the Ministry of Panchayat Raj on March 2026 in collaboration with the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Okay, and it is implemented through Nirbhaya Fund. And what is this Nirbhaya Fund? This Nirbhaya Fund basically came in after the heinous act of Nirbhaya Act which happened in Delhi, and this basically fund was given out for the betterment of women's safety and women and the protection of women dignity, wherein around 1000 crore rupees was given for the betterment of women's safety, of installation of CCD cameras, giving special provisions for women in public transportation and etc. and all other sectors. So this was implemented through this Nirbhaya Fund. Now, what is the objective of this particular initiative? That is to build women friendly and inclusive panchayat. So remember, this Nirbhay Raho initiative is more related to the women's participation in politics. So this is something which you can relate to. This is not from art and culture, I'm sorry, this is not art and culture. This is which you can relate to society and polity. Okay, equal representation of women, okay, women empowerment, political inclusion of women's. So this initiative is to make women friendly and inclusive panchayat by strengthening the community level mechanism for women's safety and dignity. There are three components as per this initiative. The first component is your Nirbhay Netri. What does Nirbhay Netri talks about? It talks about building capacity and legal awareness for women in panchayat. I mean the women which are elected as representative of the panchayats. Like you might have watched this series of panchayat series, wherein you saw that the woman was basically the pradhan, but her husband used to go to office and do all the official works. She did not even know about it. She did not know about her legal right. She did not have anybody around her to make her understand that she has the main power to control the entire village or to control the administration. Okay, but she did not know about it. Her husband, however, was intelligent, or was educated, or I could say was more knowledgeable. So there's a misuse of her position by her husband. So this Nirbhaya Netri is to build this capacity and create a legal awareness for elected women representative, where the women, they know their rights about what are the things they can do or they cannot do. The second component is the Nirbhay Drishti, and this is nothing but installation of CCTV cameras at strategic rural locations. And the last one is the Nirbhay Chetna. This is very, very important, and you'll hear this a lot of time. That is sensitization of male. That is Nirbhay Chetna. Chetna is something kind of an awareness. So Nirbhay Chetna, the work of it is to sensitize the male in the panchayat, wherein the male understands the value of women under whom they are working or who are working with them. They understands their psychological and also understands their uh, physical problems at times, so that the male can have kind of an empathy or compassion towards their fellow woman worker. Only then they will able to respect and promote gender equality. Okay, so this is all about your Nirbhay Raho Yojana. Okay, the next article is the Netra Airborne early warning and control system. That is, this is a very good news for India, that India on June has officially handed the final operation challenge of the Netra Airborne aircraft. And this is the Netra Airborne aircraft. What is this aircraft? This aircraft, it is not something which is new. Okay, I mean, in the month of June, India has given the India has given the final operation clearance. Final operation clearance means that this was working earlier also. So it was not just finalized, but we have now officially made it public that we have these Netra airborne aircraft. What does this craft do? Aircraft do? This aircraft basically is a vigilance aircraft. That is, they fly, they hover above us, and they collect data through sensors, and these data are better for real time monitoring or real time predicting. So can I say that if there is an airplane above my city who is hovering and is giving continuous data to the defense forces, the defense force has more real time accurate data, and in times of crisis like war or internal security, that can be used for the can be used as an advantage for the military and defense organization. So this is what, for the first time in India, we are having our own monitoring or vigilance aircraft. And very interestingly, this aircraft is, like I told you, is not something which is new. It has been used, like in 2019 in the Balakot airstrike. This was used to pinpoint the location of the militants, bunkers. So at that time it was in the trial period, but on June, I mean this week, the government has officially launched it and has said for the full operation of the Netra airborne aircraft, vigilance aircraft. It was developed by DRDO, okay, and along with developed by the Center of Airborne System under DRDO in close collaboration with Indian Air Force and private Indian defense industry partner. Okay. Now, if we look into the features of these particular aircraft, what are the features? First thing is that it has been modified with the twin engine Brazilian Embraer ERJ 145 aircraft. Second is that it has a coverage of 240 to 270 degrees, that is not 360 but 240 to 270 degree it can cover. The third one is very important and interesting, is that it has a range, or it can trek for a kilometer of 250 to 500 plus kilometer. That is, if say example, this is Pakistan's border, okay, this is the border, and on this side it is India and on this side it is Pakistan, the aircraft being here can trek or collect informations up to 500 kilometers from the border. So it means that even the aircraft, even without going into the Pakistani air, uh, uh, what is it called? I mean, I'm not getting the word. Anyways, even without going into the airspace of Pakistan, it can collect the data up to 500 kilometers. So we can say definitely Lahore, Islamabad can be covered from borders of India. So this is one of the best thing that we get the data, because if the airplane goes into the Pakistani airspace, then definitely will be shot down, or that will also be kind of breach of their own sovereignty. So without going into the airspace, by staying on our borders, we can collect the data. So this is one of the best and the most interesting feature about this aircraft. This is the prelim set of questions from Nirbhay and the Airborne early warning system. Now the last is that we have some places of news for this week. We are going to look into these places. The first is the state of Messina. If you look into state of Messina, this is Italy. Okay, this is Italy and this is Sicily, and this is your state of Messina. Okay. Now, why is this in news? Because recently, Japanese Prime Minister has expressed support to Italy for construction of a bridge over the Strait of Messina to connect the Sicily island and the mainland island of Italy. So this is your state of Messina. So what does this strait connects? It divides Sicily island from the mainland of Italy. And what does it connect? It connects the Teherian Sea with the Ionian Sea. So you can say it connects Ionian Sea. Okay, and this is your Italy. Here you have your Rome. Okay, the capital of Italy, comment it in the comment section. And then here there are certain active volcanic mountains, like Sicily is one active volcanic mountain, then you have your Stromboli, you have your Stromboli, you have your Vesuvius. Okay, and all of these volcanic mountains are located in this part of Italy. So this was in news, and this entire thing is where in the Mediterranean Sea. Next you have the conquest. It was basically a bilateral military training. Okay, 2003 it was a bilateral military training between USA and Mongolia. But since 2007, okay, this military training has been open to other countries also, and India is participating on it from 28th June to 3rd July. Okay, now what is important here, that in the comment section please comment down the capital of the country where this conquest is happening. So the conquest is happening in Mongolia. So this is how Mongolia was in news. In Mongolia, remember, okay, there is a desert which is very popularly called as the Gobi Desert. And the third is the very terrifying news which happened in Venezuela. I mean the earthquake which happened in Venezuela. Okay, so this is our Venezuela, and this is the place where the earthquake happened. It is somewhere near to your Valencia. Okay, there's a city here, Valencia, and the capital of Venezuela is Caracas. And remember, Caracas is around 160 km away from the epicenter, but yet Caracas was impacted to such a level that you might, when you look into the images, you'll feel like this epicenter was very near or was in Caracas. So it was around 160 to 180 kilometers away from the epicenter. Okay, but yet it was impacted because of its very high magnitude and also intensity. The magnitude was 7.2 on 24th June. Okay, that is around 18 local time, 18.0 local time, and it was in the after just a few minutes it was again 7.5 magnitude, just a few minute difference. So that is the intensity was extremely high, and thus you see this devastating effect. Now if you look into Venezuela, here there is a lake. This is called as the lake Maracay, Caibo, Maracaibo Lake. And this Maracaibo Lake has the world's highest crude oil reserves. So Venezuela imports most of its crude oil from Maracaibo to rest part of the world. In Venezuela, there is a grassland, okay, which is called as Ilanos, Ilanos grassland. There are grasslands in South America like Caatinga, Campos, Pampas. So there is one grassland in Venezuela which is called as the Ilanos grassland. And in Venezuela, you'll also have a fall which is called as the Angel Fall, which is the world's highest fall. And this is on the river Charun. Okay, and Charun is a tributary of Orinoco River. Okay, so this is all about this week's current affairs. Next week we are going to come up with more articles. Like every day there are two articles which could be very very important for your knowledge based understanding purpose of UPSC. So we'll try to cover as many as articles, because the editorials you can read them and you can understand them, and that is more about for your analytical understanding and building your analytical skill of understanding topics. But these articles are more of your current affairs, wherein you have to have text and context or factual remembering of certain data, figures, and etc. So you're going to get the PDF in the description section. So if you have any queries, you can comment in the comment section, or you can give out your suggestions of covering articles. So here we have covered it from the Hindu, from the Express, and from PIB. Okay, so thank you, and hope to see you for the next current affairs session. Take care.